Rev Karen from Gordon-Pymble Uniting Church. We are at the moment celebrating the season of Lent, and Lent is all about getting ready. It can sound a bit intense, but part of it is actually just about thinking about how we can have a better relationship with God and making that a priority for the moment, for the next 40 days as we go forward in the journey to Easter. Most people think for spiritual practices to happen, you have to be in a big grand building like this with your nice pews and your stained glass windows. But spiritual practices can be done anywhere at any time. The whole point of it is about finding your way to connect with God. So I hope you'll join us on this journey as we figure out together and try and experiment with different ways of doing spiritual practices. And hopefully in amongst that, you will find one that connects you and God in a much deeper way. So here we are in our first spiritual practices for our season of Lent. One of the long time ancient spiritual practices that we've had for a very long time is, of course, reading the Bible. A lot of people get pretty intimidated by it. It's a big book. It's an old and ancient book. And sometimes the language can be confusing and it can just be difficult to know where to start. Of course, there are no rules to this. The idea is to find your way to be able to engage with God. If you want to know more about the life of Jesus, then I suggest you have a look at the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. If you want to hear the story of how God has been involved in humanity since the beginning of time, that's where you want to have a look in the Old Testament. If you want to hear how the early church tried to order itself and make sense of it, then you might want to have a look at some of the letters. One of the best places to just take some time to be present with God, of course, is in the Psalms, which is songs that have been written about people's encounter with God and what that means. The particular tradition that I'm going to look at today is one called Lectio Divina. The idea is to read the text so that you can understand it best for your own life. It's not about trying to understand what the text is saying or its context or its the more intellectual part of it. This is about sitting deeply with God and listening to God about what God is saying to your life. So the first thing that you need to do is slowly read the text. Have a look at it. The idea is to notice each of the words that are in it. It's not about rushing through and trying to get as much out as you can. It's about deeply listening and noticing the words that stand up and how they connect in with your life. Once you've had a moment doing this or some time, you might take a minute, you might take 10 minutes having a look through a particular passage. Once you've done that, I want you to reflect on a particular word or phrase that stood out for you. Just take some time reading it over and over again. You might want to put the emphasis on a different word every time you go to it, but just with the intention to listen to God and hear what it is that God is saying to your life. When you feel that you've really resonated with it for a while, turn that particular phrase around into a prayer for God. Just use ordinary words, whatever comes to mind, and share that with God. And then just to finish, stop and be still with God. Just be silent. Whenever something comes into your mind, just let it go and be still with God. Remember that you are a beloved child of God and rest in the embrace of God's love of your life.